seen online, would you say that the dumbbell joint for the neck is more well received than the dumbbell joint with the hinge?
I think it's 50-50. I think that's the problem with all of the Marvel Legends fans. They're very much they're open to new things, but they hate letting things go that they love too, you know? So I think it's just kind of a, you know, I think I enjoy it, but I think there's probably, you know, room to keep looking to evolve and come up with something, maybe an even newer marriage of both of those.
Okay. Yeah. I see it like a 75-25, but I could be wrong. And I also kind of see it like a crocodile. You could only evolve so far with certain things and then boom, you're set. You know what I mean? Like, because that hinge joint can still, for some of them, you're able to kind of like give that shifting mobility, and that creates a good enough pivot for me on some of those joints. And then I wanted to ask, what I just reviewed the Joe Fixit, by the way. So a couple of questions about Joe Fixit. Like, holy crap, we had an announcement for the Joe Fixit wave, and then I immediately see Mo Jr. finds him over here in California, and then I find him over in Target over here in California. How did that happen so quickly? And what's with that skin color?
Well, the skin. I'll take the skin color deco one, and then I'll let Ryan talk about the other side. Ryan and Dan. The skin color is based off of the reference we got from the game, so that's the coloring we had for that variation of him from the Square Enix game.
So they changed it on you, like
they may have. I haven't played the game yet, so we had early concept reference for all of those characters, and that's what we used it because. You know, the game just came out a month ago ish.
Yeah.
You know, we had that thing was wrapped up over a year ago, so we were definitely going off of earlier concept art from where, you know, from the time it left our hands to, you know, the time all of the amazing digital wizards in the gaming industry can keep working and tweaking stuff. You know, we, you know, kind of had to cut bait, so that's where it ended up based off of what we had at the time. But you know, we were talking earlier today that there's multiple variations of that character that we can do going down with some slight costume changes where we can get you all the proper grays and all the proper greens, you know, whatever you need, you know, down the line.
And pinstripes too, please. Don't forget the pinstripes. I like the fancy pinstripes. I noticed you missed that on the Kingpin as well, but I'm assuming...
You always like to make things more expensive on me, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. Yeah. I want it to be harder. It's got to be harder, Dwight.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But yeah, so if Ryan or Dan, if you guys wanted to tackle the whole distribution thing, and please less Target. So,
in terms of that wave being revealed at Pulse and then popping up a few days later, that's what we like to call threading the needle or a pocket. No, it just worked out like that. We have to juggle a lot of for waves that are not IP sensitive, meaning tied to a movie. It's kind of once they leave the factory, who knows when it's gonna start appearing. So it kind of worked in our favor because that was our planned reveal. Sometimes it doesn't work that way, as the Hellfire Club Trooper kind of showed. It popped up in the UK, which was actually nice for some of our international fans to have something to be the first ones and kind of break the news. So yeah, that wasn't planned or done any special way. That Avengers wave was the second wave of the assortment for the year. So the way second waves work is they just kind of come in whenever, basically. So I'm glad that it came after, and I'm glad that fans are kind of liking it from what we've seen thus far.
Unlike it's 2020, man. Everything, any plan that we have is like, So luckily it worked out where it didn't hit the shelves before our reveal, but yeah, 2020 has been kind of crazy, man, you know?
Yeah, it's Armageddon, baby. No rules, man. But yeah, anything kind of goes, though. It is a weird time. That's like one thing that we expect, like maybe people like big companies to kind of have certain things together, or I don't know what the expectations are, but it's or I do know what the expectations are, but it gets really, and I think it's a part of the pandemic how it could be really tricky for people to get a hold of their figures with certain retailers. And I'm just to one of my supporters, Graham, wanted to ask about maybe kind of how that works and deciding which retailer gets what, and if you guys have an influence on maybe backing away from certain retailers over others, because like Target, shady, man, like really really shady. Like they got like I'll show up and it says the figures are in the system, and then they say no, it's not here. So like with, I don't have any Walmarts close by, but I'm curious if you guys have like much of a pool on which retailers or how much you guys work with certain retailers. Let's Target, please.
Yeah, so we work closely with our regional partners, and what you're talking about is for US. So we work
Right.
with US sales and marketing teams just to kind of brief out the exclusives. And I think before it used to be they were more of tools to kind of guarantee that the line got placed, but Legends has kind of grown beyond that almost now. So now it's kind of working closely with all of our big partners, both brick and mortar and e-com, in terms of like marketable events. So that's like out of aisle, like movie launches or out of aisle end caps or programs to kind of in an ideal world, exclusives anchor those big placements to drive more news at retail. So that's what I'll say about that. And then kind of secondly, just in terms of the various experiences, we read about it, we hear about it, we see all the comments, the lovely comments on the feed about some retailers in particular, both on Marvel and for other brands. I will just say that those teams are aware of some of the pain points, and they've taken very like discrete steps to improve of that, in terms of like limiting quantities and things like making checkout a little more complicated. So everyone's kind of trying, and it's not a perfect system, but we're working on that to make it better. And then we were just talking about like they're behind me there, the Gambit and Rogue, which will be Target exclusives, but there was no pre-order because there is actually a big Target retro program in stores for December, I believe, for Marvel. So those will anchor that in-store program. And we're pretty sure that the quantities are high enough number that you'll be able to walk in store and find it with relative ease. I think a lot of people had success with the Storm and Thunderbird 2-pack this last weekend. Maybe you didn't, Ross, sorry about that. But I mean, we saw other people take pictures of them sitting on shelves, or everyone kind of queuing up in the consumer electronics area to ask. That pre-order admittedly didn't go the best. There wasn't a lot of quantities devoted to it up front, and the pre-order timing was slightly off. So we're working to correct that. But generally, I'd like to think that in store you'll have good luck. I mean, some of those finder websites may not always be accurate, and maybe some stores in your area might be better or worse than others. But yeah, I mean, we're working on it, and exclusives kind of can't really just vanish. So all those calls for no more exclusives, to be honest, that's kind of not really how the business can run. But we are trying to make the process overall better.
All right. I appreciate hearing that. All right. That's cool. I did notice I found my Transformers. I saw Transformers Leadfoot at Target. There's a couple there. I paid double to get it on eBay because I suspected I would never be able to find it in the store. So, yeah. So if you're saying we could trust the brick and mortar experience, then I'll go with that. I haven't seen. I bought Thunderbird and Storm from Canada, so I could, because I needed to have it. I didn't want to miss out on it. Speaking of retro figures, Mark Tac asked if we'll get more retro figures with updated versions of past actual retro figures in a similar way like you'd done with Captain America and the swoosh effect. Or do you have that on the table with more retro figures kind of incorporating effects and different attributes of those classic toys kind of reimagined for updated retro figures?
Gotcha. Like the old toyetic features of the 90s and figures. Yeah, I would love to do more of that. For us, it's kind of just balancing the expense for what we already have in our tool library that we could add in there for that little bit of extra fun, versus is there something iconic that you want to tool from scratch to put in there for that type of character? Because we only have a finite amount of money for every year, and it's just kind of deciding where we want to move it. You know, is it for accessories for retro and in lieu of a build a figure wave? Is it a build a figure wave with a new build a, or a build a figure wave with a partially existing or an all new deluxe? There are all those different levels that we're trying to figure out.
One thing that a misconception I had about the way action figures are made is that I had made an assumption in the past that once you guys had tooled something, from then on out, it's free on your end to remake the figure. But it's not necessarily the case, right? Like there's still a cost involved with making that figure. You just don't have to pay for that that initial massive bill of, the tooling, right?
You're exactly correct. Yeah,
Like
there's
a highly
still a,
like a highly articulated figure is still going to be expensive in the
correct.
budget when you're figuring these things out for how much you're going to spend on the wave making it and everything, right? So
Very, very, yes, that is a very accurate depiction of it. You know, the amount of money we have to tool new parts is part of the formula, but it's very separate, because taking a figure that's if I was to ship this figure again next year, that still has a considerable expense to it, just because the the plastic cost, the time to run the machines, the labor of assembly, the deco of the figure, all of those things are baked into every figure every time. The actual new parts is part of that formula, but it's a whole separate bucket too.
gotcha.
I
Is
want to
that
make our engineer proud too, to show that I understand this. But also, when fans look at figures and they say, "Oh, just take this piece from that figure and that piece from the other figure, and it's free to you," depending on how the pieces are in a tool together, to run it just for like a head, if there's other things in that tool, then you're scrapping those unused pieces. So there's actually material cost if it's like, I want to run this tool and whatever's in it, but I only want to use one piece out of it. So that's like an additional variable that maybe some people don't understand. And it's something that I learned, a couple years in, when I was asking the same questions, like, wait a minute, we have this weapon accessory from this guy, can't we just throw it in? And then our engineer's like, well, then you have to run that whole tool, and we're not using a lot of this plastic, and we scrap it. So then that all factors into the cost and the financials of it.
so kind of like
And
buying a whole wave of figures when you really wanted just like one or two from the whole wave? Kind of like that?
You want to build a figure, so
So it's like
yeah, kind of like that. Sure.
it's like, oh, this is an expensive one or two figures because the tooling had to come with all of this other stuff, or it complicated the whole thing. And I'm just trying to like get the common ground going with the idea behind it right here. But
Yeah, I mean, that analogy works, but actually you guys can, if you're buying a wave for one or two figures, you can try to like resell the other ones, right? But like when we make figures, we can't do that. We're in for the cost of whatever it was to run it.
so like now you have a million little knives. And what are you gonna do with these millions of little knives sitting around? I wanted to ask, how come this actually comes from Frecky. He wanted to know why the Vulture figure came out with ports on the shoulder and then later on the tricep. I have one of each, so that's something I was kind of really curious about as well, and how and why that occurred.
The how it occurred was we had reviewed a sample at Check Model, which had it attached to the tricep. And then when they went to production, for some reason, they decided to, I think there was just more meat in the shoulder. So they moved the socket to the shoulder, which on a figure without wings, it would have been perfectly fine. But when we got those samples in, we're like, wait a minute, if you rotate his bicep, it pops off the back part of the wing, or whichever part, I forget which piece interfered, but we're like, it has to be here so that it moves in unison, because if it's on the shoulder and you move the bicep, it just pops the wing off. So it was just someone made a call very late in the line on manufacturing, and some of those samples must have made it out. But as soon as we caught it, we're like, no, you can't change these things without telling us. There's a reason why we ask for the figures to be built a certain way, because if it's in the forearm and in the bicep, it'll rotate at the shoulder and the wing will always stay together and it won't interfere with itself, because the early samples interfered and it popped off, and we're like, that's just not an acceptable play experience for the fans. So that's why we went back and changed it as quickly as possible.
Okay, nice. All right, that makes sense. I have a list before we're about out of time, and everybody asks for particular figures. I have just a list of some Marvel, like a wish list of Marvel Legends. If you wouldn't mind me reading some of these figures, and there may be some here, but I tried to organize. Toad is one that I've been really wanting for a very long time, and I hope we get an updated Toad figure with a classic design in the near future, along with Avalanche, Destiny, Mastermind, 70s Marvel Girl, 70s Angel, a new Banshee Dwight, Siren, Richter, Monet, Feral, an X Factor Wolvesbane, you guys already know, Random, Cartoon Morph, Elixir, Azazel, a Build-A-Figure Armor would be dope, Build-A-Figure Grizzly, Build-A-Figure Liefeld Warpath. I wanted a larger Warpath, to be honest with you. Classic Lizard Build-A-Figure, Shriek, The Spot, Cardiac Mang, Jigsaw, the Russian Build-A-Figure. It would be dope to have the Russian with my Punisher. Mr. Negative, the Rose, a Riot Build-A-Figure maybe, Agony, classic Adam Warlock, Star Fox with Pip the Troll, Nebula, Build-A-Figure Dragon Man, Whiplash, classic Drag, MODOK, A-Bomb, Ghost Rider 2099, what? Phyla, Vel, regular size Sandman, Lady Deathstrike, Moon's, Nightmare, Sleepwalker, Molten Man, Exodus. I mean, okay, it just goes on forever. And MCU Quicksilver, of course, because I know everybody wants
Dwight, you got that all right? Yeah.
Got all of them, right?
Yes. Yeah, and at least 5 of those are coming.
Oh, you gave
right.
5. I was gonna say 1. I was gonna say 1, Dwight. Come on. Now they're gonna play it back and actually go through it.
Yes. Awesome. I was hoping to
just
get
be
some
lying to
from the interview if I just spewed out a whole bunch of names.
Yes, you'll be seeing a few of those.
Nice. All right. There's actually a couple I had to skip on my list because you announced them at PulseCon. So
nice.
Yeah. Thanos and Classic Falcon, which is, the new one isn't technically a Classic Falcon, but it's a new Falcon, and I'm really
more classic.
Yeah, definitely more classic. But I really like that. That was my favorite figure from the wave. Was the Falcon figure. I liked that one a lot. And then and can you guys just tell me each of you your favorite Marvel superhero and your favorite Marvel supervillain, and then I'll let you go. I promise.
Guys,
favorite Marvel superhero and favorite Marvel villain. Is that too loaded?
No, they're thinking. All right, my favorite Marvel villain's Apocalypse. I absolutely love Apocalypse. And as far as heroes go, it would be a mix between Wolverine and Colossus. Those are my 2 favorite heroes.
Nice, yeah. Wolverine.
I'll just cheap out and say like Gambit, just because he's my favorite X-Men character, I guess, which is probably pretty apparent, and Rogue also. And then for villain, I'll just stay with X-Men, and I'll just say Magneto, just because he's such a complex character. He's been good, he's been bad, he's been this, he's been that. So just from a storyline perspective, I'll say him.
Yeah, I have. I'll cheat. I have 3. I like Captain America because I was in the Army and I was officer, so Captain. I love Spider-Man because I'm from Queens and he was like my first favorite like superhero. And then my favorite X-Men is Nightcrawler because I like to be a man of faith, and he kind of represents that. For villain, that's really hard. I would say Doom. I love Dr. Doom, even though he's sometimes like more of an anti-hero sometimes, but yeah, I love Doom.
Nice. Great choice. Very thoughtful.
What about you?
And thank you for your service, by the way. I have to say that, especially.
Who's your favorite hero and villain?
My favorite superhero is Spider-Man, or my overall Spider-Man all the way. And then my favorite villain goes to Magneto because I never really saw him as a villain. he just has a different point of view, and I like that complexity with him. Also, Thanos, though, really like Thanos a lot. I mean, there's a lot, but I tend to lean towards Magneto because of the humanity and the parallels, society and everything. So yeah, I really like Magneto a lot.
Can't go wrong with either of them.
Yeah, man. Yeah. A lot of fun characters. Fun time talking to you guys this morning, by the way. I really appreciate the time again. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much.
Man.
And
time.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks to all the viewers for watching. Make sure you guys hit that like button and the subscribe button and the notification bell, and expect more to the channel. And I want to thank the MHT again, and we will catch you guys later.
Sounds good. Thanks, buddy.
Peace.
Hey, new ShartimusPrime videos. Hey, you should click one. Yeah, click on one of them. Or subscribe if you haven't. Your face is